Well, today is just going to be a little experiment. We've had this RV for 9 years, I think, going on 10, and I've never had a failure to where I had to bring in my store more HWH slides in an emergency situation. But I know the day's coming, so I want to make sure it works and that I know the procedure. So I looked at the manual here, and it kind of gives you the details about what to do. And if you're looking for this paperwork, that's probably what you need to Google. Something else I did, this page came in handy because it tells me what solenoids I need to open up to bleed what room. Because like for the table, the bedroom, the couch room. So I've got them labeled here. So when I get under the RV, I know which screws to back off about 4 turns to allow the hydraulic pressure to bleed off. Of course, the way because we got a 3-room slide, and you start with the driver's seat and you go counterclockwise. So room 1 would be this slide here. The bedroom slide is also on the driver's side. That's considered room 2, and that would be considered room or slide 3. So anyways, just kind of give you an update on how that lays out. So I'm going to start this process and just see how it goes. You can learn with me. Well, I also want to point out to you about downloading your operator's manual and your service manual for your HWH system. Read through it, kind of understand the basics of how it works, and make your notes, highlight important sections, so that way if you get in a spot, you'll have a chance of being able to service it yourself. Even if you can't service it yourself, you get over a technician, at least the technician will you'll already have a manual handy for him. That will help him out too. But see, I put together this little book with all my different manuals, because we got the 325 series, and then I got little tabs here for quick reference. There's my manual retract instructions. I got that, this owner's manual. Then I got this full complete service manual too that gets more technical, a lot of details. So keep up with your service manuals. You never know when you're going to need them. So the first thing I want to do is lube up these threads, because the whole idea is, I believe these are called Acme threads, threaded rod, kind of a coarse thread. And inside that square tube back in there is actually a nut, but it's made out of plastic. It's kind of the fail-safe, because if you don't do this procedure correctly and you bring the room out, something's going to break and something has to give. So they make the nut out of plastic so it'll strip out instead. But I'm going to lube this threaded rod up. I'm going to bring the room in, so when I bring the room in now, because at the moment it works, I'm going to crank this rod in, so that way what I'm going to be doing is running that plastic nut all the way up this thread and back, just to make sure it runs smoothly. So give me some spray lube and get started. Okay, so I may not have explained that good enough. Let me try this again. Now I'm under the RV. You set long threaded rod inside this square tube. I'm assuming right in this area here we probably got that plastic nut. Now if I started cranking in on this right now, the nut will bottom out. It'll slowly start bringing the room in manually. But I want to make sure the threads are good and clean first. So now that at the moment everything works, so I'm going to bring the room in, because as I bring that room in, this rod and that nut retracts. So once I bring the room all the way in, that nut's going to be way back here at the other end of it. At that point, I'll start turning this rod until that nut travels all the way down and back again. Once I do that, I know the threads are in good shape, lubed up, and I'll have a better chance of making this work. Okay, so step 1 for me, I'm going to bring the room in. Nice and smooth. Once I get it in, then I can make sure those nuts are in place and working before I go any further. Alright, all the way in. Okay, here's step 1, because I want to make sure those threads are clean and good. So you got this little roll pin, and you got this set thumb screw that prevents that from rotating. So first of all, we got to get this out, and then I'll get my ratchet on this and see if I can't run that nut all the way, because now look at the distance now. You can see the square tube back here, See how that rod is retracted all the way back inside that tube. So now that nut is like 2 foot back inside toward the RV. So I'll rotate that, bring the nut all the way up through, past those rusty threads I've just lubricated. Just make sure everything's working smooth. Alright, so yes, that's what I'm doing. Pulling that nut all the way through until it tightens up. This may take a while, I don't know. Let me just pause this for a second. Let me tell you, it did take a lot of turns, but I finally got it there. I'll show you here. Okay, so finally it's snugged up. So you can see it right there. So now I'm pulling the room in with that nut. Of course, the room's already in. But that's the reason they put a plastic nut here. In case you retract the rooms in manually and you got it in this position, and you forget after you do the repair, say you blew a hydraulic line or something like that, you do the repair and you go to take the room out, that plastic nut is going to be the fail-safe. It's just going to strip out instead of breaking rods and tearing up other stuff. So now at least I know that rod is nice and smooth. The nut still works. The threads are good and clean. So I'll retract this all the way back out, and I'm going to do the same to the other side. And then I'll bring the room back out and try to do the real procedure. Okay, so I've successfully pulled this one all the way until it got tight. But in order to do so, because of this roll pin sticking out here, it was hitting this nut. I had to pull that one nut and bolt out to get that out of the way. So and I'm telling you, you'll think the nut is stripped out because you might spin on that thing for 4 or 5 minutes constantly. So now I got to go the other way, take it all the way back out. Up, and I know the nut's intact, and I know the threads are nice and smooth on both rods. So I'm going to sit here and do this for 5 minutes and get that nut all the way back into the rear position where it needs to be. Okay, getting closer to the real test. Take the room back out. Nice and smooth, all is quiet, no noises. Let it labor a little bit. Okay, got that. Back outside we go. Alright, so step one, it looks like, just reading by the manual, is we need to locate what solenoids we need to release. So we've already kind of determined that because of this paper here. In fact, we have a 3-room slide, so we got a total of 6 solenoids that control the 3 rooms. And I've already determined the one we need to release is room cylinder number 3. Oops, sorry, it's kind of windy today. So room 3, and we'll get that. So that's room 3, and it tells you this is the lower manifold because you got 2 manifolds. You got a lower manifold for the rooms, the upper manifold is just for the hydraulic, the jacks, the leveling jacks. And these are the 2 solenoids we need to release. Got this one here and this one, tight spots for sure. And you've got to run the screws in, looks like counterclockwise, 4.5 turns. And it warns you, if you go more than that, you could damage the solenoids. And they're expensive, so don't do that. They also talk about the fact that inside your dipstick, which is, let me right in here, there's a dipstick on top of the tank. You can see my finger, there's the dipstick. Inside that dipstick is a 1/4 inch nut driver that will do the same thing. But that's a bad idea. If you take that out and use it to loosen up these nuts, because these nuts are going to be dirty and dusty, then you're going to turn around and transfer that dirt and dust right back into your hydraulic system. So just get you a 1/4 inch socket or something like that. If you do have to use the dipstick to loosen the nut, then be sure to clean it thoroughly before you put it back in the oil tank. So I'm going to try to carefully release this and give it 4.5 turns and see how that works. Okay, you can see how I'm doing this. I'm giving it 4.5 turns, and you can see, I took a magic marker and made me a little mark on my socket. And I've carefully counted as I went around. Make sure to get it right. Alright, so I've got that. Now the trickier one is over here because I got a battery cable in my way, and that's a hot battery cable. So I got to loosen it. Hopefully I can loosen it and just turn it down and get a socket in there. So that's going to be a booger. Let's see what we got to do to get that loosened up. Okay, so to get to this point, I had to do a little change, and I had to remove my battery cable from this connector because it was running right up in behind the solenoid. You see the cable up there. Of course, before I did that, I removed the ground off the engine battery, and then I double checked it with my test light to make sure it was off. Because if you remove this big cable and it touches ground, you're going to have fireworks. So you don't want that going on. And I unplugged the solenoid up here. And that's that connection here. Took it up high and unplugged another one, got it down here low. And there's that connection. So now I got room, and I got my socket back in there, and I got my little mark on the magic with the magic marker. So the same way, so I'll slowly undo this 4.5 turns, count my turns carefully, and we'll get that done, and we'll go to the next step. Oh, I noticed. Don't be startled as you start backing this up. You'll hear the fluid release. So I just heard the hydraulics. Oh, there it goes again. All right, so there you go. Okay, now we're ready for some action. What I did just now, I just took me some 30 weight motor oil and lubed up this rod because I figured there might be a lot of pressure on it. And I also put it down in here really good because there's going to be a lot of pressure right in this area. There's like a nylon washer in there, it looks like. And the book, I talked to fellow HWH, the book says like 12 turns on each side, but he recommended, 5 or 6, not as many, so we don't create any binding. And so my plan is, you can see as I tighten this up, you'll see, let me see here, I got a socket on it, and this takes a 13/16 socket, by the way. And as I snug it up, you'll see the slat comes out of it as it raises up. Okay, so now I just start to get some tension on it. All right, let me do the other side. It's a windy day, my doors keep falling down on me. Okay, put my socket on that. Slack is out of it. All right. So let's see how it goes. 1 full turn. 2 full turns. 3. 4. 5. So I got 5 turns on that side. Let's do the other side. Well, I guess you probably should go 10 on this side. That would get me where I need to be. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Wow, it does have a load on it. So I'm gonna keep doing this back and forth. Don't know how long the process is gonna take, but I'll keep you updated. Okay, well, like I did, so first I did 5, okay, then I did 10. I'm gonna do another 5 on this side. Let's see how that feels. 1, 2, 5. All right, I'll just see if there's any change inside yet. Not really, nope, can't tell nothing yet. I'll keep it turning. All right, so I must say it is getting a little easier. You see I'm making progress. Show you how it goes now. 5 turns. Once we kind of get up that ramp, it really gets a lot easier. Those first couple turns are pretty tight. 5 more. 5. Let's show you what's happening inside. So you can see we're coming in. It's working. coming in. So I'll just keep cranking. I'll eventually get there. Alright, you can see how close I'm getting now. Once I get up that ramp, it's really easy. You can just, one finger is all it takes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Makes a big difference once you get up that ramp. Start going in with it. Yeah, just a few more cranks. We'll be all the way in. Alright, you can see we're at the final stretch. It's almost touching at the top. Okay, get to the side here. Oh, that wind is driving me crazy. Alright, back to the other side. There it is, snug. Alright, that side's all the way in. Let's work on this one. There she is. Alright, so the room is fully retracted. So that's how you do it. Now I just got to reverse the process. Alright, so you can see the room's fully in. So if we had a scenario where the pump failed or whatever, we had to get up and go, that probably took me, you know, start to finish, an hour and a half, my first time. So, but yeah, it's no big deal. Now that I did it one time, I can knock it out a whole lot quicker the second time. So let's crawl under the RV and put things back the way they are supposed to be. So remember, the mistake can happen a lot of times where you get the room cranked in, you go to a repair facility, whatever, you fix it yourself, you replace the broken line, cylinder, replace the motor, whatever you do, and then you forget you've cranked these all the way in. And then you go to extend the room. When you do that, you'll strip those nuts out, because that hydraulic ram has so much power, those plastic nuts don't stand a chance. I should say the plastic nuts back in here. So keep that in mind. So now that I've got, now I got to undo what I did. I got to unscrew these things for about 5 minutes to get that nut all the way in the rearmost position. Oh, and another tip. So after you've got the room retracted, you put your little thumb screw back in here, and that'll keep that rod from unscrewing, and you don't have to worry about your room creeping out on you. So don't forget that. Okay, just a side note here. Of course, if you have a Winnebago, it comes with this wrench. 13/16 is what you need. So you need to check your toolbox, make sure you have a 13/16 socket, which I do. But the problem is it's 1/2-inch drive, and because I looked in my toolbox, I do have this little adapter I could put on the drill, but it's only 3/8 drive. So I need to make a note to myself to get me a 1/2-inch drive adapter. So that'd make quick work of getting those, unscrewing those long threaded rods. Keep in mind, you don't want to use your drill to probably bring in the room. It'd be hard to count your turns and to keep it straight. And I believe the process, you want to kind of take it in kind of slow, because remember, you're forcing that hydraulic fluid all past that little bitty solenoid. It's got a very small orifice in there that you're shoving that fluid back through it into the tank. So slow and steady is the way to do it. Okay, new tip. I took this bolt out because that roll pin was in my way. And I noticed when I took it out, it wasn't very tight. So I checked out these other three. They was all, well, they was snug, not very tight. Each one I was able to give another half turn on them. So you might want to check yours, make sure yours are good and tight. Because that's something I've never messed with over the years, I don't believe. So, because the paint marks were still lined up. But what I want to point out too is while you're in here and you got the roof closed up, look back in there, check those white pieces. If yours are cracked and busted, then find my video on my channel here and replace those. It can be done. It's not easy, but you can do it yourself. But because when those start cracking, the room's going to start dropping, and you'll notice your paint lines won't line up. That's a good trick. If you look at your paint lines, they're not lining up, you got somewhere something needs to be adjusted. Okay, let's crawl under the RV and hook things back up. Okay, so we're back under the RV and just following the manual step by step, like it says. We put everything back together. Today, and thumb screws back in. Now we just got to put our tighten down those releases on the solenoid valves. And this time we're going to go clockwise until snug. Warning: do not over tighten. So let's get that done. All right, there it is. Done got my socket on there. Just get her snug. Well, I'm going to have to use two hands. I'm not able to get it. See, I'm trying to accomplish this with one hand. It's not very easy. Oh, there she is. Just snug. Alright. That's all we need. That done. Now I got to do the same on this solenoid. And hook up. Oh, remember I have to undo my wire and I have to hook that back up. Plug a few connections up. So let's get that finished up. Okay, well everything's finished under here. I was going to point out now, if you ever change your solenoids, I've had to change a few over the years to get the new style, so it's a lot easier. You don't have to deal with those little bitty nuts. You just trip that lever to open up to let the bypass, to allow the fluid to go back into the tank when you crank your room in. So yeah, we've had a few solenoids, and actually I keep a spare solenoid with me just in case I need one. If you wonder what that creaking noise is, that's my sweet pea up above rocking in a rocking chair. So that's what that is. What I was going to talk about, a little bit about the repairs I've done on it. So we had this thing about 9 years. I've had a shuttle valve. I had a shuttle valve went bad on me. And when that happens, your jacks won't retract. We was in the middle of a racetrack and went to leave. The jacks wouldn't come up. So of course I pulled out my manual, found out what the problem was, and I had to release one fitting on one jack on this one over here. It was easiest to get to, and by doing so it allowed the pressure to shift and I got all the jacks to come up. I've had that to happen. I had some O-rings to leak up above. I popped a line one year. I forget which one of these lines here that broke on me with the shuttle valve. What else have I had? I think I broke a spring. A few things, stuff like that's going to happen, so you need to be prepared. Get your manuals downloaded so you have a chance of doing it yourself, because a lot of times you're on the road and there may not be an RV technician nearby. You may be the technician. So get your manuals out, download them, research them, and so you can be ready for the next big thing, because there's always going to be something. There's always something. So let's go upstairs and I'm gonna hook the battery up and we'll give this a test. Okay, so last step is hooking up my battery, and I always keep this little handy wrench here next to the battery, so if I need to quickly make a disconnect, I can. And you may be wondering, so why have I got this battery in this basement area? Well, I did that a couple years ago when I put in, upgraded my 12 volts to 12 volts and went to 6 volts, 6 volts, and put them under the step. I had to move this battery into the storage bay here in order to make room for the 6 volts. But I did vent it. You see my lines coming out. We're vented to the atmosphere, so there's no fumes or anything that will be in the basement. So anyway, got that hooked up. Now let's go inside and see what happens. Okay, the moment of truth. Just down here and hit this button. Hopefully we don't hear no loud noises, scary sounds. It's a little out of sync, but it looks like it did okay. Okay, I'm gonna bring it all the way back in and take it back out again, because I seen it was out of sync at the very end. Let everything pressurize. All right, now let's go back out. Yeah, that looks much better. All right. All right, so I guess that's how we do it. So if you get in a jam, need to manually retract your room, that should be the procedure and get you done, get you out of a spot. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.